Campus to Canton. Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
No Felix Sharp. No Austin Nace. It's just Chris Moxley, Matt Bruening here, Campus2Canton on the Better Sports Network. And we're going to start it off with a very intriguing story, Chris. Colorado. You know, they were once very familiar with the Big 12. You could almost say they were exclusive for a very long time. Colorado looked at Pac-12, said, she's kind of cute. Decided to up and leave the Big 12 for the Pac-12. Wow. Big 12 got themselves a really good-looking girlfriend. You know, had a good time with a lot of these other teams that they brought over. Dion, Colorado, got a little bit jealous. They're going back to the X. It's been approved. Colorado has met. Their presidents have approved it. They are leaving the Pac-12 after the 2023-2024 season and heading back to the Big 12. Some massive implications, in my opinion, for the college football landscape as the Pac-12 has been one of the Power Fives for a very long time, but what do you say, 2 years maybe down the road, we may not have a Pac-12 anymore. I mean, what does this tell you about Colorado leaving the Pac-12 to go back to the Big 12, which is also very annoying, saying Pac-12, Big 12, and there's like 18 teams in one. Now there's like 8 in the other. It's very confusing, but that's what they're called. They're probably not changing the names due to licensing and everything else going on. But what does this actually mean for the college football landscape with them being one of, right now, a team leaving a Pac-12 heading back to the Big 12?
Yeah, I think it tells me that the Big 12 is in much better shape than the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is George Katloff, who is the commissioner of the Pac-12, is a doofus. That's putting it nicely. I'll be totally honest. He fumbled the situation so terribly. I mean, you have a league that has USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. Like those are 4 really high-end programs, and UCLA can debate, but like they have enough money coming in at least. And then you have Colorado, who's been historically successful despite a bad couple of years. They couldn't negotiate a TV deal that satisfied everybody, so you have USC and UCLA leave to go to the Big Ten. Now you have Colorado leaving. Brett McMurphy's reporting that we might see another 1 and 3 schools join Colorado in 2024. One of those might be a group of 5 school, but one of those or 2 of those are probably going to be Big Ten schools. Again, all my conferences mixed up. Pac-12 schools as well. So this is a huge win for the Big 12. Bottom line, like they're doing really, really good. Pac-12 is probably going to be non-existent, like you said, because they don't. We're less than 30 days from the season. They don't even have a media rights deal. Like that's what it is. Like nobody's going to broadcast their games as of July 27th.
I mean, that to me alone is also just a massive storyline that I feel like has kind of been swept under the rug, as we are a month away from college football kicking off. Week 0. Week 0 is almost here, and we don't know where we're going to be getting Pac-12 football games at the moment. And they keep telling us, he keeps telling us, oh, we got this massive deal. It's coming. It's streaming rights. We're going to be all over the place. Big Ten, what? SEC, who? It's a Pac-12, and yet 30 days away, Colorado's gone. And let's be honest. I mean, you said that they used to be relevant. Whether they'll be relevant on the football field or not doesn't matter. Dion has brought
they got Dion
relevancy, and they're out. They already said they're out the door. You mentioned that Brett McMurphy works for The Athletic, one of the probably, you could argue, the Schefters of the college football world, and in his reporting has said 1 to 3 teams, and they said if none of the Pac-12 teams, other Pac-12 teams, which has been rumored that maybe the 4 corner schools, as they're called in college football world, which is Arizona State, would be 2 of those that might come with them. The ones that they are looking at from the Group 5, UConn, Memphis, San Diego State, and UNLV. Now, this is no shot to those 4 schools. I imagine the Big 12 would much rather have Arizona and Arizona State follow them, and I don't see why they wouldn't. The other 2 you would probably assume would be Oregon or Washington, would be in some kind of talks to leave to join another conference.
There's rumors going around that they're in talks with the Big Ten as we speak, which doesn't surprise me. And I think they're a bigger brand than the current situation of the Big 12, which is a solid conference, but not necessarily the top tier. I think Brett Yormark has done a really good job, but I don't think he's really solidified himself in that same tier as the SEC and the Big Ten. But I think San Diego State is the team that you want out of all this. I mean, you have that San Diego market, which I think is probably going to be important because that's a market that the Big 12 just isn't in currently. They have nothing in California. I don't think UConn really holds much value. Memphis is a good team. I don't see that happening. UNLV kind of makes sense too because they play in Allegiant Stadium, which is the home of the Raiders, and I think the Vegas market is kind of interesting. You'll get some interesting media opportunities there, and so I understand why, because we have a hockey team there. The Oakland A's are probably going to end up there. So I understand the Vegas angle, but I don't know if I'd really want UNLV to enter my conference if I'm the Big 12.
Hey, you need a team that's going to take the L's. All right, they just want the paycheck and take the L's.
You have that. You just brought in like Colorado. I don't think BYU is competitive. You have Kansas. Like Oklahoma State is going to fire. Well, I think they're going to at least fire Gundy in the next year or two.
So. They've had many opportunities and they haven't done it.
You got West Virginia, who is like on their last legs with Neil Brown. I mean, there are a lot of like the top of the conference is super wide open, but the bottom is maybe it's just a really competitive conference overall, and that's the answer.
Yeah. What makes this even more intriguing when you bring up San Diego State, who, correct me if I'm wrong, was just recently, quote unquote, flirting with the Pac-12, trying to leave the Mountain West to go to the Pac-12. And then all of a sudden is, oh, no, we're good. We're going to stay. We want to stay here in the Mountain West. There's a whole thing with their buyout and all the other stuff, right? Maybe they saw the writing on the wall, said, no, we're good, Pac-12. We're going to go ahead and stay in the Mountain West for a year. And now they're going to head to the Big 12. Because, again, the Pac-12 it's crazy to say because I've been a college football fan for decades, and it's hard to imagine a Power 5 conference just disappearing, but I don't see how the Pac-12 survives. And it's even weirder saying because Colorado leaves, but I think that's the final nail in the coffin with the fact that we already know USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten.
I mean, I think the USC, UCLA leaving was the canary in the coal mine. This is the oh crap, the coal mine's collapsing. I don't even know if there's a phrase for after the canary in the coal mine. But I do think it's interesting because I think San Diego State was flirting with the Pac-12 in terms of, the TLC song "No Scrubs," right?
I do, yes.
Yeah, so like I don't want your number. I don't want to give you mine. Like I felt that's how the Pac-12 viewed San Diego State, and I think that was maybe a misconception. George Gatloff, who's the commissioner, and we brought him up earlier. I mean, he's misread the situation so horribly. I think here's what I think happens with the media rights deal. I think the media rights for the Pac-12 After Dark, which is kind of like a staple of Saturday night football, like 10:30 plus start times, 8, 9 if you're lucky and it's a premier game. I think those are going to go to a big name. So whether it's CBS or ESPN, I think that's who gets that. Who right now really wants to broadcast Arizona State versus like Utah? Like that game just doesn't hold a lot of interest. And so who gets that game at 3:00 in the afternoon? I don't know. It's probably, maybe it's on TLC. I don't know. But yeah, they fumbled this situation. And I thought the ACC had the worst TV deal negotiated by Jim Phillips, who is in a little controversy himself after being the athletic director at Northwestern for a handful of years. I thought he had a horrible TV deal. And that deal's still horrible because it's through the next 13 years.
Still 13 more years, yeah.
Still 13 more years. But whatever the Pac-12 deal is going to be worse than that.
13 more years left on it. I believe they're making like 10% of what the Big Ten and SEC are making. Like it's bad. Yeah,
the SEC and Big Ten each have like over $1 billion a year deal, and I think they're making. I wish I had the number in front of me. I don't remember now, but it's like at minimum 10%, at most 30%. Like it's just not a competitive deal in the marketplace. And you see like there are rumors now. Florida State is possibly negotiating with the Big 12 too. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Florida State, Clemson, the top tier programs in that conference left as well. And then you're stuck with the academics who don't want to compete, which is like the Duke, Syracuse, Virginias of the world. We'll see.
So I want you to commit to an answer now. In 2 years, is it just 3 big conferences? Is it Big 10, SEC, and Big 12? Pac-12 and ACC are done?
3 years?
Yeah, we're 2025, 2026 season's about to kick off.
I'll commit to 3 years for the Pac-12. I don't know if I'll commit to 3 years for the ACC.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Fair
Split
enough.
the middle? Split the difference?
Works for me. Yeah, I think the interesting thing will be, I think ESPN would want the rights to that. We've seen that them talk about all the time how they just want, like, you get eyeballs on football games, right? Like they don't care if it's UNLV versus UConn, which would arguably be a horrible game to watch. They want it because they'll put it on ESPN Plus. Someone will tune in. I think they would love to have those Pac-12 after dark games because after that,
I'm that someone, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you. I usually have some crap game on ESPN3 up on my laptop. But yeah, it's they want that. What's it? I can't remember the word that's been used for that, but they want that just to have it, just to cover all their time slots, especially because someone at some point in time is just going to tune in. Because they're going to see, college football. Maybe it's 1 o'clock in the morning here in Texas, Arizona State's the one. Sure. What else am I going to do?
Hawaii doesn't kick off to 12:30, and they play a bunch of West Coast teams too.
I know.
Different conference, but still, I mean, you have people watching the Rainbow Warriors.
Yeah.
And they kick off on Sunday Eastern time.
Yeah.
So there are people who are going to view these, and that's not even a Power 5 conference.
Yeah.
So
gotta love college football. Everybody says NFL's on from all day long. No.
Sometimes we got 11:30 kickoffs. Like I think Army kicked off a couple times at 11:30 last year, and then we get a 12:30 kickoff at Hawaii when they're playing on the island. So I mean, 13 hours of kickoffs to 15 hours of football, probably.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. It's, probably if you had to ask, I actually think college football is like the leading reason why people get divorced. If you're watching college football all day long, just imagine committing to that for 12 weeks out of the year. There's a reason I don't watch the NFL on Sundays. Unfortunately, I've kind of followed suit with you on that. We had another massive story drop here in the college football landscape. Not as much fun to talk about, I would say, as the Colorado leaving Pac-12, and that is what's going on with PJ Fleck and the quote-unquote culture with the Minnesota Gophers. It was dropped by, what was I forgot what the name of the website was. Chris, do you remember what it is?
Yeah, it's Front Office Sports.
Front Office Sports was dropped on Thursday at about 1 o'clock Central Time. So that would be 2 o'clock for you Eastern folks. And I'm not going to continue giving time zones because I'm really bad about remembering the rest of them. Those are the only two that I remember. But it described some very interesting things from former players, supposedly former staff members, about PJ Fleck, his quote-unquote cult that he was leading, that he was describing as a culture for Minnesota. What are your thoughts on this and then the piece overall written about Fleck and the Minnesota Gophers?
I mean, I feel like we all knew it was a cult, first of all. Like, row the boat is a cult. But I say that, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? So PJ Fleck had a ton of success at Western Michigan, produced a ton of cool offenses, like really innovative for that conference, the Mid-American MAC. Goes to Minnesota, has seen success through his career there so far. But his brand of football is not for everybody. Like he has heightened expectations on and off the field in ways that I think certain players coming into the program may not be comfortable or familiar with. And so I think you have a handful of players who just aren't cut out to be in that style of coaching. And that's fine. Like I said this earlier, that I don't think I would be a good fit in this program at all. Like, I mean, I didn't play football in high school. I was on the freaking debate team, right? So like, I am not the person to have the soundest judgment on this. But based on the article and based on what I know about coaching and the college landscape and football in general, this is a lot closer to a hit piece than it is a legit indictment of the way that PJ Fleck has run the Minnesota program. I actually felt like it. I kept waiting for the gotcha moment, and like it didn't come. I was like, okay, yeah. He people were mocking his or saying his slogan, "Family, forget about me, I love you," which is he took from Graciano at Rutgers, is like inherently demeaning to oneself. Like I don't know. All of these things that added up were like non-issues for me. And I mean, I like PJ Fleck would not be my coach. Like I would probably quit the program too. But I understand it. Like you have to build a culture, and you have to build a culture off the field too. Like the last Minnesota coach there was only there for a year. So you need to have a good system in place internally and externally. And I don't think he's asking more than really any other coach in the country is. He's not doing the DJ Durkin thing. The DJ Durkin thing is like players were saying they're working really hard in practice and being like punished for making mistakes by doing extra workouts, which like you made a mistake, go over in the lap. Like that's what it feels like, which isn't foreign to me. Like I did that in middle school. I don't know. But the DJ Durkin thing, which is I'm going to work my players till one of them dies on the field. That's not what PJ Fleck is doing. I don't think it's a toxic program or toxic culture at all. And I was kind of disappointed to read this article because I was expecting to like find a takeaway. It really just felt like a hit job. And I honestly don't appreciate it because I think PJ Fleck is probably at the end of the day a good dude who just works his like kids really hard. It tries to develop them on and off the field. I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I was not expecting to agree with you on this. Usually when
you know me, I'm taking the other side of these issues.
Usually you're going to come in here with a hot take and like we're canceling PJ Fleck here and everything. But I mean, like I've said this recently and I'll say it again. You can't spell culture without cult. Football is that. Like it is a cult at every program in America, guys. I would argue 98% of head football coaches are exactly like PJ Fleck.
And those who aren't, by the way, are getting canned.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Look, the Todd Grahams of the world who don't care about the students at all and are interested in building culture. They get canned, like he did at Hawaii.
So I never made it to the collegiate levels that Felix Sharp and Austin Nace had. And it's a little bit disappointing, unfortunately, that neither one of them could be here because I'd be very curious to hear what their thoughts are on this being probably closer in proximity to something like this than you or I was. I did play competitively throughout my entire life. I had coaches like PJ Fleck. And it was never, at the end of the day, it was still very much about you as a person, but they were trying to grow the culture of what it makes to be what you have to do to be a team, grow together to become something better. And it was, as you mentioned, something on the field and off the field. I will never forget my high school soccer coach there were times that same thing you said, mess up, you miss a free kick. Hey, run a lap. Like I wasn't out there thinking about how hard that is on me. Like that's nothing okay, I have to go run a lap. It's not like he was like, go run 6 miles without stopping now. Or it's 180 degrees in Texas right now. I want you to go do up downs for 3 hours until you pass out. No, run a lap. Run a lap, folks. It's really not that hard. Now, there are a couple things we should address in this piece. There are reports about some injuries that maybe they made doctors look the other way on and everything. None of that has been substantiated, so it's hard to say. That part I don't want to overlook, right? Like, if that is true, then that is a very serious accusation, and he should get in trouble for that. But there was one player that mentioned that it has not been substantiated in any way, or any of those players have actually come out and said that they were that player. So it's kind of hard to know if that part is true. The other main thing that it seems like a lot of people got very upset with was he has what they called this quote unquote Fleck bank, where you get points, and this is where you mentioned the off the field stuff. You get quote unquote Fleck points, or Fleck money for going to children's hospitals and making appearance and helping kids, doing charity work off the field, doing other stuff. That sounds like horrible human being stuff to me. I don't know, man. Someone with kids and they get to meet their heroes. Yep, you're a bad person for making people do that. But if they did stuff like that, they would overlook quote unquote a positive drug test. Guys, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret right now. If you didn't know, I'll whisper it, so it's just you, Chris, and me. That's all that's listening. Everybody does that. That's not a secret to anybody. There are college football coaches that will overlook horrendous things because all they want to do is win on the field. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it reminds me a lot of when people talk about you don't want to know how the sausage is made, you just want to eat it. And I really feel like that is the same thing here with college football. When stuff like this comes out, people act horrified and I can't believe this is going on and everything else right now. But the minute that these games kick off in literally 30 days, because as you mentioned, the first round of games are on August 26th, nobody's going to be talking about this. Everybody's going to be excited that college football is back. We've heard stories like this on and off the field. And in my opinion, again, outside of the injuries, which has not been substantiated yet, there's nothing in that article that makes me think PJ Fleck is a bad person, a bad coach, deserves to be fired, or anything like that. It's literally what I've heard go on in every single, and again, not just college football program, baseball, soccer, volleyball, whatever you want. This stuff that goes on in high school sports. Not necessarily probably lower than that. I mean, I now coach kids soccer. I would not necessarily run kids an extra lap because they missed a free kick. Who knows? Maybe we'll see. But regardless, as it's not, to me, I agree with you. It seemed very much like a hit piece. It was not what it, I think, was tried to make out to, or they tried to make it out to be.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe ironic isn't the right word, but I think it's kind of poorly timed when we contrast it with the Northwestern situation, which was very much not a hit piece. It was a Northwestern's running a really messed up program with some serious hazing and legitimate like assault issues they have to deal with. Like it's an issue. So yeah, I just hated how they contrasted the two, and they're not at all similar.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no real easy way to transition from a story like that. But we are going to go to break. When we get back, Chris and I are going to continue talking and breaking down the SEC for the 2023 season. We're going to do some prize picks as they just dropped some season-long player props, and we're going to preview over-unders for the SEC teams in the 2023 season.
Kendre Miller fan. He's running back 46 in the Fantasy Pros Championship right now at the end of the 11th round. I want you to talk a little bit about him from both standpoints. Number one, from redraft. He's in the backfield, same backfield as Alvin Kamara, who we talked about in the first hour, and then obviously Jamal Williams. But as far as dynasty goes too, what should you be doing now if you're a dunce like me and missed on Miller? What kind of offers should you be making for Kendre Miller in your dynasty leagues right now?
Well, the problem now is the news worked against you, right? In the sense that you know that there's a suspension looming. We don't know what that suspension is. So do you try to go after him prior to the suspension, or do you wait to see how long it is?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the higher the suspension is, the more expensive Kendre is going to be. It gives him an opportunity. We saw Kamara, you don't have to go farther than New Orleans. We saw Kamara take advantage. I remember they brought in Adrian Peterson. They had what's his name? Mark Ingram.
Yep.
Right. And then they brought in Kamara, and everyone's like, there's no way Kamara's gonna be relevant year one. And he smashed because talent comes through. These teams want to win now. They're gonna put the best players out there. Kendre Miller comes off of a 1,400-yard season. Like, one thing for me, bulky in fantasy, is if you showed me you did it, I'm gonna believe you.
Mm-hmm.
This whole upside thing where you've never done it, I'm over all of that. Like, tight end position I talk about often. That's why I don't invest in rookie tight ends. I'll pay the price for a Kelsey. I'll pay for a Kittle when I know they're going to smash for me, right? Running back, you're looking for talent. You're looking for proven. This guy's proved it. And progression. You look at his career in college, he's progressed every year in the receiving game, in the rushing game. There's something about when you watch him play, and sometimes it's not, I don't have a great stat for you or anything, but there's certain guys when I see him play, something kind of, and he's one of the guys when I started watching his tape and just seeing what he can do. I think he can be an all-around workhorse. He had 224 touches in his last season in college. So look, we talk about New Orleans. We don't know what this offense is going to look like. They have a new quarterback. They have everything, a whole new situation there. he could come in with Kamara out and just take over that backfield right away.
Campus to Canton.
Guys, you need to go to fantasyalarm.com for the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football Draft Guide and All Pro subscription. Their All Pro subscription has everything you need for the football season, including the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football Draft Guide, your cheat sheet, and your one-stop shop for dominating your drafts. It is digital, so it is constantly updated with new information. You don't have to worry about going out and buying multiple ones. It's always updated. Purchase the draft guide for $26.99 or get it for free with a monthly or annual subscription to Fantasy Alarm. Start your 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm All Pro and get immediate free access to the draft guide. Go to fantasyalarm.com. Chris, it is time to talk some more SEC. Kind of gave a lot of this last week, talked mainly about the Georgias and the Alabamas of the world, but there are other teams we need to discuss when it comes to the SEC, including one LSU, who I think has a chance to really throw a wrench in not just Alabama's plans, because they do play them in the regular season, quote unquote, but also Georgia's, because if they do get through Alabama and make it to the championship on their side, they will likely play a Georgia. Looking at the quarterback room, Jaden Daniels, Garrett Nussmeier, and freshman Ricky Collins. Now, we as a company here at Campus2Canton, by the way, Chris Moxley. I was going to call you Croc Moxley. I don't know why. Chris Moxley. Matt.
Oh, that's way cool. That's way cooler. That's way cooler.
Croc. I'm just going to get it going now. Croc. We're at with Croc Moxley.
All right.
Campus2Canton on the Better Sports Network. We like Garrett Nussmeier. We think he is a very good quarterback. He projects like what you want an NFL quarterback to be. Yet I don't think that we're still, again, going to get to see him this year for LSU. We got to see him a little bit last year in that bowl game. Actually, I think we got to see him in the SEC championship game as well after they started getting kind of blown out by Georgia. But it's likely going to be Jaden Daniels' year once again for the Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nussmeier is a better player than Daniels, and I tend to agree with you. I just don't see a situation where, outside of injury, he gets in. I love Nussmeier, though. Like, I think he's going to be a player who, after Daniels leaves after this season, is someone who could potentially contend for, like, first-round NFL draft buzz. I think he's that good of a player. It'll be his fourth season in the program without starting, which is a little bit scary. Those players don't traditionally succeed, but I mean, what we've seen of him is awesome. And I think that the only reason that he isn't starting this year is because they're going with like a little bit of veteran deference to Daniels, who led the team to a fairly successful season last year. And, you know, I think that they're going to be as good, probably better this year. I mean, we've talked about them on multiple shows. Just, I think they can beat Alabama as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about their over-unders here at the end of the show. They've got an incredibly good defense, and if that offense even takes, I don't even think they have to take a step forward. They're going to be one of the better ones in the SEC. They had look. Your boy here was not the biggest fan of the Kelly hire. Matter of fact, I think I said they were only going to win like 5 games. He was going to be fired after 3 years.
I tried to tell you.
Brian Kelly looks like he ain't going anywhere. They had a really good season last year for LSU. What I find more intriguing is I wonder how much of this is Mike Denbrock. So for those of you who don't know, he is the offensive coordinator for LSU. He's had a kind of type with his quarterbacks. You have to go back to Cincinnati with his keeping of Desmond Ridder when Luke Fickell came over. For those of you who don't know, this was actually before the real portal era of like you could just transfer and play right away. You still had to sit and wait a year. Luke Fickell goes into Cincinnati. They look at these quarterbacks like, I don't know. Fickell's like, we need to go to the portal. Mike Denbrock says, no, I think I see something here with Desmond Ridder. They play him. Look at what he does. They go into recruiting and get a guy in Evan Prater who was very much like Desmond Ridder.
Yeah.
Then they leave. He comes to LSU. I think you could argue that's kind of the mold that Jaden Daniels is. That's very much the mold that freshman Ricky Collins is. So it feels like Mike Denbrock kind of has a type, and unfortunately Garrett Nussmeier doesn't fit it, even though he is I don't even want to say arguably, he's the best quarterback in that room by far. It's not even just skill talent. Okay, maybe he doesn't bring you the rushing that Ricky Collins and Jaden Daniels can, but passing, it's not even a contest. Hopefully, we get to see him next year.
He's athletic. He's athletic. Like, I don't want to undersell his athleticism either, but he's not a guy who's going to rush for 600 or 700 yards on the college. Like, he's like a 300-yard guy, which is fine. That's still good, but yeah, not the same player.
Another quarterback room that, at least up until this year, had been very intriguing, and this player realistically has a shot to break all kinds of SEC records this year, and likely his final year starting. I don't want to say that because eligibility is pretty much like if you can slip a 20 to the NCAA committee, you get another year, it feels like. I don't understand what's going on with eligibility right now. But
he might actually, that might apply to all of this team, by the way, in terms of petitioning for another year of eligibility. But sorry,
they might
continue.
No, yeah. We're talking about Mississippi State. The untimely passing of Mike Leach, rest in peace to the Pirates. This team is completely changing. New offense, new coaching staff. It seems like, and I'll let you talk more on this, it does not look like it's going to be the air raid offense where Will Rogers has thrived. So this offense could take a massive step back. They really don't have anybody else in this room that's intriguing. They brought in a freshman in Chris Parson, who I actually think will fit what this offense is going to be in the future. But I think it would be very hard to ask him to step in and play at all this year. So it's going to be Will Rogers' time to shine, maybe?
Yeah, it won't be the air raid really in any capacity. Their offensive coordinator left and went to Western Kentucky, and I think that'll be an interesting fit. But yeah, Zach Arnett, who was the defense coordinator, was promoted to head coach, and I thought he did a really good job at defense coordinator. I thought that he would have been in contention for other jobs, if without the Leach passing. But yeah, it's just gonna be a different offense. Will Rogers has. Would it be fair to say he has one of the worst arms in the Power 5?
Yes, it would be fair to say.
Okay, so he struggles to throw the ball like 50 yards downfield, even if we're talking about like a rainbow throws. But I still think this offense could be a little bit interesting. I do think it'll take a step back, but I mean, he's not that far away from breaking some SEC records, so I will be on board with that. A fun player, and I just hate the situation that Mississippi State was put in with the passing of Leach. So it stinks for sure, but projecting them forward, I do like Chris Parson as well at quarterback. I think that he is a really good, like, hand-picked guy for the system that they want to run moving forward.
Yeah, and a much stronger arm. He's not a guy you will be bringing. You won't be swapping him out if there's a Hail Mary at the end of the game you need to throw. They'll probably actually be bringing Chris Parson in to throw that Hail Mary, and Will Rogers will be watching it from the side.
Will Rogers has never completed a 50-yard pass, a pass of 50-plus yards in his entire career. That's pretty tough to do.
So, I'm just saying.
Neither have I. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Something the three, me, you, and Will Rogers have in common. I now have a stat that is in common with a very good SEC quarterback.
Perfect air raid quarterback, though.
He really is. Tennessee.
So don't want to knock him too much. Yep.
Yeah. Joe Milton, likely going to be the guy this year. We saw how everybody kind of fell in love with this Josh Heupel, Alex Golesh Tennessee offense last year with the points they were able to score until they played your team in South Carolina Gamecocks. Not so much in that one. But Hendon Hooker kind of became a draft dog. I was setting you up. I thought you were going to put it on everything. I was trying to set you up for it. Everybody fell in love with Hendon Hooker. Kind of became that draft darling. We're already seeing it with Joe Milton. He can throw the ball. There's a 9. There's a 9 in there, Chris Moxley. I don't know if you know this. There's a 9 in there and how far he can throw that. I'm assuming they're intimated toward he can throw it 90 yards on the football field. That's great and all.
I believe. I kind of believe that.
Oh, I believe it. Malik Murphy.
His arm is
70, so I would not doubt it at all.
He might have the best arm that I've ever seen of a player.
Yes. The main thing for him is going to be just improving as a quarterback overall, which he looked better. I'll give him that in the game against Clemson in the bowl game, at least compared to where we saw him a year ago when he started over Hendon Hooker and, kind of threw that game away. I don't remember who they were playing, but all you had to do is give his wide receiver a chance.
I think it was Pitt.
It might have been Pitt. Just give your wide receiver a chance down the end zone. Instead, he ran out of bounds with no times left on the clock. And it wasn't like time just ran out as he ran out of bounds. No, the clock had been on 0 for a good 10 seconds. And then he still ran out of bounds. And, say la vie. But they do have a very good freshman in Nico. I'm going to call him Nico because I will butcher the last name, and I don't want to do that here. What are your thoughts on Tennessee? Obviously, we'll talk more about their... No, you know what? We'll save it. I want to ask you more about Nico and how many starts he possibly gets, but I want to hear what your thought is on their win total. But Joe Milton, you expect him to have a good year this year in the Tennessee offense?
I think the Heupel offense can make any quarterback look good, right? They stretch the field to its limits, essentially, as wide as they can make it. And the collegiate field is actually wider than the NFL field. So it creates some disadvantages for defenses. And it's essentially a ripoff of the Baylor Bryles scheme. Very, very similar. It's kind of like a 2.0 version of that. I think it can make Joe Milton look good because he's only reading half the field at a time. And he's probably just focused on one target that's getting schemed up. But we've already seen him fail in this scheme. And we saw him fail at Michigan, too, prior. So this is a player who, despite all of his physical attributes, has not put it together as a quarterback. That concerns me. I do like Nico Iamaleava. I think he's a pretty good player. Yeah. But he's still small. Needs to put on weight. And there are other concerns with his profile. But Joe Milton, if he starts the whole season, will be awesome. Joe Milton could also get benched by week 2 or 3.
First round pick?
No, that's not happening.
I'm just asking the question. It's gonna be talked about.
It's not happening.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Tennessee wide receiver room. You talked about how it is very much a one-read offense. We saw the hype that both Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt got at times. Again, rumored both were going to go in the first round. Hyatt went second round. Tillman went, I think, third to the Browns. Is that correct? That sounds correct.
You're asking me about NFL stuff. You're the NFL guy on the show.
Know. Absolutely.
I think Hyatt did go second round to the Giants, right?
I know he went to the Giants, and I know Tillman went to the Browns. I'm almost positive it was second and third round. The hot name, at least in the community, has been Marquarius Squirrel White, who had the very good bowl game. They have Brew McCoy, who transferred in, Dante Thornton, who transferred in, Ramel Keaton, Caleb Webb, who was a freshman last year, and then freshman Nathan Leacock. How would you view the wide receivers in this room? Obviously, the only one that I believe, so Marquarius Squirrel White, Brew McCoy, and Dante Thornton all could go to the draft. Could Keaton as well? I think he's got one more year.
I think he could if he wanted to.
Okay.
Or he wasn't a true freshman last year. He was a second-year player.
He was not.
So he'd be draft eligible. So here's what I think. For a lot of the offseason, I've been thinking that Squirrel White is going to be the guy. And, the big bowl game that you talked about kind of has propelled that thought. But the more that I've listened to Tennessee beat writers and people in the know with the program, Bud Elliott summer school on Tennessee kind of made me, I've heard this a couple times, but really made me kind of step back from the Squirrel White stuff was they still like Brew McCoy, who I think is the wide receiver 2 no matter what. Yeah. I really believe that. I think he's the wide receiver 2, regardless of who the wide receiver 1 is, just solid player. Dante Thornton is really well liked with this program, and I was not a fan of him when he went to Oregon. At least not that big of a fan, but he transferred in, had a really nice spring. Ramel Keaton is a player that they really like and had a pretty solid end to the season as well. So I am less interested in Squirrel White, and Squirrel White's a tiny guy. He's almost like the Marquise Brown profile, right? Like a guy who is kind of taking slants over the middle, tiny, probably doesn't weigh more than 160. We've assumed that he's going to step into that Jalen Highlight role, which was so valuable last year. If you don't remember, he caught 5 touchdowns against Alabama, toasted their defense, won the Biletnikoff, super talented player, super fun player given the context of this offense. But I am more skeptical than I was 3 months ago that role is going to belong solely to Squirrel White.
Yeah, it really seems like Dante Thornton could be the guy who steps up here, which will be intriguing because I'm with you. But he's got the size, 6'5", 190. That'd be a very intriguing player to watch in this offense.
Do you put him outside? Do you put him and Brew outside and still let Squirrel operate from the slot? This is an offense that also runs a lot of 4 wide receivers. I mean, 3 wide receivers
Yeah.
will be on the field almost every snap, but even 4 wide receivers, I mean, I think you're going to get Ramel Keaton in there. Cedric Tillman 2 years ago was really productive.
Yeah.
So like maybe it's we look to the outside guys who are going to widen the field and create mismatches. So I just have no idea. I'm a little scared of Squirrel White though.
It's hard to say because Jalen Hyatt spent most of his time in the slot last year. So like you want to say you if that's where Squirrel White's going to be, that's why I think people are hyping him up. But as you mentioned, Cedric Tillman was the guy the year before, and I think that is where going to be Brew McCoy and Dante Thornton are. So it's going to be really intriguing to see what happens with the Tennessee offense. Obviously, have a chance to be a very, very good team. We are going to go to break. After this, we're going to come back. We're going to talk more about the Texas A&M Aggies quarterback room, Auburn's running back room, a couple more wide receivers, and we'll talk SEC teams over, under, and some player props for college football this year.
I feel like this is a quietly contentious point in Dynasty Fantasy Football, what it means to actually be rebuilding. Some people say you should never truly be rebuilding. How do you view the rebuilding versus competing dichotomy in Dynasty?
So I will be the first person to acknowledge that my preferred format of fantasy football is just redraft. The years that I have played Dynasty, it has been I've drafted a win now team because I've seen people that have just gotten into the cycle of rebuilding and thus they just don't make any progress. So if you're rebuilding for the 5th year in a row, I just, I don't know exactly how you get out of it, but yeah, it's definitely something that can happen. And a lot of people, especially when we come out of the NFL draft, everyone's just instantly shipping off, draft picks and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely something that can happen.
Joey, do you feel similarly to it? Do you feel like you see people getting stuck in the rebuilding loop?
I mean, I would say people that try to rebuild in the beginning of seasons, of their fantasy seasons, I see them get stuck in that rut. I would really try to only ever rebuild if I knew I was going to miss the playoffs. Like, I'm always trying to play to win, even if it's maybe I don't know.
I think my big thing is the word rebuild is a much shorter time frame than I think most people say it should be. Like, they look at rebuild as like 3 years out competing. Rebuild, you're looking to compete next season. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing it now, you're looking to revamp, and maybe there's a one season where you ship it off, but that very next season you should be competing. If you're doing it like that, I'm cool with it, but you got to have a plan, not just keep getting the young players, keep getting the draft picks. Otherwise, you end up like Tim. Maybe not like Tim who gets a bye, but you make the playoffs, you're in that like 4 to 6 range every year, just hovering in the middle. Nothing ever gets better, nothing ever gets worse.
I think I play like you in Dynasty, Simon. I play in 3-year windows.
100%. That's my go-to. And with the rate at which Dynasty leagues turn over, you should really only ever play in a 3-year window.
Franz Ferdinand, baby. I love it. We need more of that when we come back from break. I don't need any of this junk Felix is always crying about. That's Chris Moxley. I'm Matt Bruening. This is Campus2Canton on the Better Sports Network. Will bring us with that gets me pumped. I want to do another hour now. I don't want to be done in like 15 minutes. I want another hour.
You're a fan of 90s one-hit wonders?
Oh, come on, take me. No, he's got other ones. What's the other? Now that you put me on the spot, I'm not going to remember.
He's got other ones. What are the other ones?
Take Me Out's a great song.
Yeah,
it really is. Franz Ferdinand. Now we're gonna talk. I'm gonna ask you about Texas A&M Aggies. I know there's another one, and I will think of it. Connor Wigman was a highly touted quarterback coming into Texas A&M for Jimbo Fisher. Arguably, in my opinion, one of the more polished and ready-to-go quarterbacks in his class. Finally gets a chance to start last year. Was okay. He had really good moments, then some not-so-great moments. Doesn't have a lot of depth behind him in this quarterback room. What are your thoughts on the Aggies? And can that offensive team improve this year now with Bobby Petrino running the offense?
Yeah, we can joke about Bobby Petrino all we want, and we have plenty of ammo to do so. I mean, you can get the neck brace, you can get a lot of ammo. Talk about Bobby Petrino. He's a good offense coordinator, though. He knows how to call football games. I will give him that. So I think Texas A&M could take a step forward if Jimbo Fisher is actually going to relent on play calling duties, which he was ambiguous about if you go to SEC Media Days. If he does, and we do see Petrino call plays, I think this offense is going to take a step forward. I like Connor Wegman as well. I think that he is one of the more talented quarterbacks in the country, top 15 if he puts it all together for sure this year, just based on like competition weighted and whatnot. But I tentatively like this Texas A&M offense, and I hate buying back in again because like every single year I bet them in some sort of like long shot and being like, okay, well, this could be the year that their 5 stars put it all together, and they had the best recruiting class last year, and they've been top 3 or top 5 for all of Jimbo's tenure. They have so much money to spend, Texas ATM. But I mean, there are some long shots I think that are pretty interesting with this program, and I like Connor Wegman, so I'm not gonna. The depth behind him is concerning, though. If there's an injury, I don't think they're gonna survive that.
Know You Girls, and I think it's Do You Want To. You've not heard that song?
No.
Well, do you wanna? It's a great song. I'm telling you, check
Sounds
it
like
out.
a cover of a
Ferdinand.
different song.
It might be. I don't know. I love it. It's great. I have all 3 of those songs. I just had to pull up out of the album on my phone. I love all 3 of those songs. Anyways, we'll stick with Texas A&M. Running back room. We talked about Evan Stewart last week. Arguably, not even arguably, he's the best wide receiver in the SEC. It's a very intriguing running back room, in my opinion, with the talent that they have there. Then they bring in, so Amari Daniels, Le'Veon Moss, who was a high-end 4-star for them last year. Then they bring in highly ranked freshman Ruben Owens, who was at best number 2 in some of the recruiting services classes. How do you expect this running backfield to shake out for the Aggies this year?
Yeah, actually, there's a chance that Ruben Owens is the guy day one. And if he's not day one, he will be like by week 4 or 5. Super talented kid who's actually come into Louisville pretty late in the process, and then ended up flipping to Texas A&M. I guess the KFC money didn't come through, or they're Papa John's. I think got a little bit of that money too. But yeah, he ended up going to Texas A&M. I like Amari Daniels. I think he's a fine player, but Ruben Owens is by far the most talented back in this backfield. He'll be starting by year end, 100%.
He's a great player. He's already 20 years old, so he's got a little bit of the how do I want to word this? He's not 18 coming into this room. He's got a grown man's body. He's got a grown man's body. It played in Texas. I think he's going to be a very good player for the Texas A&M Aggies. I'm excited to see him get on the field. Last one that I want to talk about here before we jump in. Actually, 2. Take that back. We'll make this really quick. LSU. We've seen over the past couple of years, if you have that LSU Tiger on the side of your helmet, it matters coming into the NFL draft. It feels like that guy's going to be Malik Neighbors. They have a very intriguing room overall with Brian Thomas Jr., Kyron Lacey, Aaron Anderson, who transferred in from Alabama, and then freshmen Shelton Sampson and Jaylen Brown. You're a big fan of the tight ends that they have. How do you view this room overall as their pass catchers?
Yeah, I think Malik Neighbors and Kyron Lacey are the 1 and 2, kind of obviously. Lacey was a transfer last year coming in from I believe he was at Louisiana, Lafayette. Yeah. Good player. Brian Thomas as well, solid player. Aaron Anderson. I wasn't like enamored with him in his profile. High end 4-star that went to Alabama last year, transferred in. I don't know if I'm lower on the freshman than consensus, because Jaylen Brown and Shelton Sampson are both really highly rated recruits, and I don't really see what I wanted to see on their profile in terms of SEC wide receiver play. Like, you stand out amongst your competition to like an exceptional degree. I didn't really see that, but I'm not going to say that I'm smarter than the services. I just am a little skeptical there. My favorite position to target on this roster, though, is tight end. Mason Taylor he's Jason Taylor's son, right?
I think so. That sounds correct. Yes.
Yeah, I'm fairly positive he is. Super talented tight end who's going to be a true sophomore this year. And the guy they brought in, Kamorian Pipton, I think he's a good player. Serious athlete who needs to learn a little bit about the tight end position, but a player that I think can do some serious damage. I really like both guys. I've drafted Mason Taylor in so many C2C and college fantasy leagues this year that like he might be one of my most rostered players. Awesome player and NFL bloodlines. We know that matters.
Unless you're Mike Valerie. Shelton Sampson, Jaylen Brown are going to be intriguing. I mean, Jaylen Brown is more of a speed threat guy. Shelton Sampson, I think he's a size-adjusted athlete. He's a freak, but I just feel like you guys do a lot of the year 1-0 theory. Again, if you guys don't know what that is, go check it out, Campus2Canton.com. I believe most of those articles are free on the website.
Basically, don't do the thesis behind it is basically do like something year one and you're set. Like don't be relegated to the sidelines.
And there's a shot that Sampson will, unfortunately, because he's mainly going to play on the outside, and they just have, as you mentioned, Kyron Lacey, Brian Thomas, and then obviously Malik Neighbors. A player that broke all of those metrics, which is very rare to do, is Missouri's wide receiver Luther Burden III, who did that last year. We'll just talk really quick on this, because I know we talked a lot about the Pac-12 after dark. Obviously, Fresno State not in the Pac-12. They were just kind of referenced as a Pac-12 after dark team at times because they always played late in the game, playing in the Mountain West for Fresno State. Saw what that offensive coordinator was able to do with one Jalen Moreno-Cropper, who was, I think, a lesser version of Luther Burden. Missouri also brings over the former wide receiver coach of Ole Miss, who developed players like A.J. Brown, Elijah Moore, and D.K. Metcalf, is now their wide receiver coach. Luther Burden was the top athlete in the class last year and a highly regarded freshman wide receiver. Didn't really put up the stats that we wanted to see overall, just over 300. I think it was 390 yards receiving. You obviously would love to see a lot more of that, but adding in a offensive coordinator who hopefully will know how to use him and his, I don't want to say supreme athleticism, but what he
supreme
can
athleticism.
Okay, supreme athleticism, and a wide receiver coach who can develop guys like that. I think the ceiling, as Michael Jordan would say, is the roof for Luther Burden. We might finally get to see that breakout year this year for him.
Yeah, no, I am on board. Kirby Moore is the office coordinator, the one you're talking about from Fresno, younger brother of Kellen Moore. So we know play calling chops are in that family. The success of Eli Drinkwitz's slot wide receivers is like one of the most underrated storylines of like the last couple of years in terms of fantasy production and like NFL success. He's done a great job just throughout his entire career doing so. So I think Luther Burden is going to slide into that role that is vacated by Donna McLovett and should see success. He struggled beyond the line of scrimmage last year. That's what it is. He's more athlete than he was wide receiver. I think he's going to continue to learn, continue to get better. But I mean, there's a lot to like about Luther Burden, and the options out on the outside are going to be good enough where he won't be bracketed every game. I mean, Theo Weiss from Oklahoma, Mookie Cooper, who's been in the program for a couple of years now, good enough.
All right, let's talk some win totals really quick and some player props on prospects before we get out of here. We talked Alabama and Georgia last week, so we're going to start with Arkansas. Their current line is at 6.5 wins over, minus 134 plus 110. I'm taking the under. I just don't see them getting to 7.
Do you want me to pick a side, or can I say no play on some of these?
You can say no play. That's fine.
Yeah, that's not a play for me.
Okay. Well, this one's going to be tough. I want to come back to some Franz Ferdinand next week, so I'm going to say smash the over on Auburn and their 6.5 wins. Our producer, Will, massive Auburn fan. Mox, what are you
I actually think you can find a 6 out there. To be honest, if you look hard enough, there might be a 6 available. Yeah, I think Auburn takes a step forward this year. I worry about some of their skill position talent. I don't love this wide receiver room, even though I think some of the transfers are kind of interesting. But yeah, I think Hugh Freeze is a good coach, bad person, good coach. I buy it. I'm on the over.
Really intriguing one, Florida. I think we may have talked about this one last week, but we'll do it again. Over under at 5.5 wins. And I'm going to say no play, but I want to take the under because I really think there's a shot they're only winning 4 or 5 games this year.
Yeah, if I didn't say that I hated Graham Mertz enough last week, I'm never going to play a Florida win total with Graham Mertz as the over. I'm just not going to touch this. I lean the under though.
All right, 3 more, and then we're going to talk some prize picks. LSU at 9.5. Their schedule is so easy. It is. I think I wouldn't play this, but if I had to, I would take the over because their schedule is just so easy early on. And I think their only hard away game is Alabama late in the year.
Yeah. So I was actually just looking at this because I was talking to somebody earlier. I project LSU for 9.3 wins. So that's right in line with my numbers, which makes it a no play for me. But I do like LSU SEC West winners in terms of division futures. If I think that's a pretty interesting way to play LSU if you want to get on the train. 9.5 is kind of tough to sell though.
Yeah. The winners is definitely the way I would go as well. I think they've got a really good shot to win their side of the SEC. Kentucky at 6.5. I think I take the over. I really like Devin Leary in this offense. Bringing back the old offensive coordinator. His name is escaping me at the moment, but I think they have a chance to be really good.
Liam Cohen.
That was it. Thank you.
Yes. I have them at 6.1. I think schedule is kind of tough. But I mean, I think you're getting some not bad value when you look at them. So, I mean, I'm okay if you want to play the over. It's heavily juiced. I mean, I would lean under just because my numbers tell me that. But I hate bidding against Mark Stoops because I think Mark Stoops is a really good coach. So I think he can get those wins out of this program, which concerns me. I'm well, the data tells me I should probably go under. Obviously, it's juiced because people are putting money on the over because Mark Stoops. But I just wouldn't touch it because it concerns me with their schedule. It's a little bit tougher than usual.
All right, last one. Either over, under, no play. Tennessee at 9.5. I'm saying no play. I don't think that they get there, but I don't know that I'd play it.
I actually think I would go under, but I mean it's juice. Okay. We're looking at it, it's juice 1.8, to an absurd amount. I think you can find a better odds than that, but I can take a step back this year.
All right, give us your best player props. Prize Picks just dropped. Not a lot, but a decent amount of receiving yards, passing yards, and rushing yards for the 2023 season over-unders. What are your best plays for the 2023 season?
Yeah, let's kick it off with Carson Steele. Under 900.5 rushing yards.
It's dropped to 850 now. So would you play? I know.
It dropped to 850 between the time we started the show and the time that we ended. So no, I wouldn't touch that. I really like Malachi Corley over 999.5. The wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 are gone.
It is still at that. So
yeah. So I really like that because I think that he's going to take a step forward in terms of more wide receiver 1 target share. Nick Singleton over 900.5. I think that's a great number. Okay, cool. I think that's a great number as well. He only had 156 carries last year. I think that he's going to take a step forward in terms of rushing share, and he's going to maintain the same elusiveness, explosiveness. So I think he could hit 1,100 yards in the regular season, kind of no problem. Trey Benson over 950.5. Trayshawn Ward is gone, and he transfers to Kansas State. Lawrence Toafili is a change of pace back, and he's the RB2. Benson actually only had 11.8 carries per game last year. That is going to increase, and I would be shocked if it didn't. He hit this number on 11.8 carries per game last year by 35 yards, but whatever. I think Florida State's actually going to take a step forward. They brought in a bunch of great transfers on defense and lead the ACC in returning production. So yeah, I love this Trey Benson 950.5 over.
If you want to have some fun, Marvin Harrison over 950 yards and Quinn Ewers over 3,200 passing. Win some money with your boy Matty B and his biases.
We call that the Homer plays.
Matt Bruening special.
Matt Bruening special.
That's Chris Moxley. I'm Matt Bruening, Campus2Canton on the Better Sports Network. We'll be back with you guys again next week, likely with Felix Sharp, Austin Nace, Will, and some more Franz Ferdinand, baby. Everybody have yourselves a great weekend.
It's good. The job is done. We can go home now.